Consider for a moment, what does cleanliness mean to you? Probably the scent of freshness, the feeling of smooth skin after a shower, crisp bed linen, the immaculate whiteness of freshly laundered clothes. For most of us, it's a given. But imagine a world where such concepts simply didn't exist, a world where body odor was the norm, and dirt was an inevitable companion, a world where diseases, which today seem easily preventable, devastated entire cities and continents. This is how our distant ancestors lived. And the journey from primitive uncleanliness to the modern cult of hygiene has been long, winding, and at times shocking. This is the story of how humanity slowly, but surely, washed itself out of the darkness of ignorance into the light of health and comfort. At the very beginning of human history, as our ancestors roamed the earth, survival was their primary concern. Hunting, gathering, protection from predators and the elements. These occupied their thoughts. Hygiene, as we understand it, was absent, reduced to instinctive actions. Humans, barely distinguishable from nature, used what was at hand, washing off dirt in the nearest river or stream, rubbing themselves with sand or clay to remove dried sweat, blood, or grime after a hunt. Perhaps they used abrasive plant leaves or ash from a fire. Ash, rich in alkali, could serve as a primitive cleansing agent, helping to break down fat and dirt on skin and clothing. These were the first unconscious steps towards what we now call personal hygiene. In the context of a nomadic lifestyle and the absence of permanent settlements, the accumulation of waste and the spread of diseases were not as critical a problem as they later became. Nature itself cleansed, and small groups of people did not create such concentrated foci of unsanitary conditions. However, with the development of civilizations, as people began to settle in permanent settlements and then in cities, the question of cleanliness acquired a completely new, vital significance. The concentration of people in a confined space inevitably led to unsanitary conditions. Waste accumulated, water became polluted, and diseases spread at an alarming rate, claiming thousands of lives. It is in ancient civilizations, such as the Egyptians, Mesopotamians, Greeks, and Romans, that we see the first organized and at times remarkably advanced approaches to hygiene based on both an intuitive understanding of the link between cleanliness and health, as well as religious injunctions and aesthetic ideals. Ancient Egypt, the cradle of one of the greatest civilizations, was renowned for its exceptional cleanliness. For Egyptians, purity was not just a matter of comfort, but an integral part of religious rituals, social status, and aesthetics. Life along the Nile, which provided water and fertile soil, fostered a culture of bathing. Pharaohs, priests, nobles, and even common people bathed daily in the Nile or in special pools. Priests, to be absolutely pure before the gods, and during sacred ceremonies, shaved all hair from their bodies, including eyebrows and eyelashes, and washed several times a day. This symbolized their detachment from worldly defilement. Egyptians used something akin to soap, a mixture of animal fat, often bovine or goat, vegetable oils, such as castor, olive, or sesame, and alkaline salts like natron, which was extracted from dried lakes. This paste, likely granular or gel-like in consistency, was used not only for washing the body, but also for cleaning clothes and for medicinal purposes, to treat skin diseases and wounds. Archaeological finds in tombs confirm their care for the body. Jars of creams, oils, aromatic substances, myrrh, frankincense, pumice stones for exfoliating the skin, bronze and copper razors, tweezers, and even toothbrushes made from tree twigs. Body care was an integral part of their daily lives, and a pleasant body odor, achieved with aromatic oils and incense, was considered a sign of nobility and high status. In Mesopotamia, the cradle of many inventions, cleanliness was also valued. On clay tablets found in the ruins of Sumer and Babylon, dating back to approximately 2800 BCE, The first historically documented recipes describing the process of mixing animal fats with wood ash and water were discovered. This was, in essence, the first recorded soap recipe. It was used not only for washing the body, but also for cleaning woolen items and, as in Egypt, for medicinal purposes. Babylonians and Sumerians, living in a hot climate, understood the importance of cleanliness for preventing infections and maintaining health. Their knowledge of soap making was likely passed down through generations, laying the groundwork for future discoveries. The ancient Greeks, though not as obsessed with daily full-body washing as the Egyptians, paid great attention to hygiene, especially in the context of physical culture and health. Their gymnasia and palaestras, where athletes trained, often had adjoining baths. Greeks used olive oil to cleanse their skin. They rubbed it on their bodies and then scraped off dirt, sweat, and oil with a special tool, the strigil, a curved metal scraper. This procedure helped not only to cleanse the skin, but also to maintain its elasticity and moisture in the hot climate. After this, they might rinse with water. For them, cleanliness was associated with physical perfection, spiritual health, and bodily aesthetics. They valued moderation in all things, including hygiene, and believed that excessive washing could be harmful. The Romans, however, were perhaps the most famous proponents of hygiene in the ancient world. Their baths, or thermae, were not merely places for washing. They were magnificent architectural complexes, true centers of public life, astonishing in their scale and functionality even today. The thermae included not only hot, caldarium, warm, tepidarium, and cold, frigidarium pools, but also steam rooms, laconicum, massage rooms, sports grounds, libraries, lecture halls, art galleries, and even shops and restaurants. People came here not only to wash, but also to socialize, exercise, read, conduct business, discuss politics, and simply relax. These were places where social barriers blurred, and even the poor could afford to visit the thermae for a symbolic fee. The bathing process in the thermae was a complex ritual. First, visitors would sweat in the tepidarium, then move to the caldarium for intense perspiration and pore cleansing. After this, they would rub their bodies with oils and then scrape off dirt, sweat, and oil with a strigil. Then they could immerse themselves in warm and cold pools to refresh and close their pores. Romans also used various aromatic oils and perfumes. Cleanliness was a symbol of status, health, and civilization. The developed system of aqueducts, which delivered clean water to cities, and a complex sewage system were key factors that allowed such a high level of hygiene to be maintained in a multi-million city like Rome. Even wealthy Roman private homes had their own small baths, and for the poor, there were public laundries and latrines. With the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century CE and the onset of the Middle Ages in Europe, the situation with hygiene drastically changed. The great thermae fell into disrepair and were destroyed or abandoned, their marble and columns repurposed for new buildings. Regular washing came to be perceived as something sinful, excessive, or even dangerous. The Christian Church, seeking to distance itself from pagan Roman customs and emphasize spiritual purity over bodily cleanliness, often associated baths with promiscuity, sin, and licentiousness. It was believed that water opened pores, making a person vulnerable to diseases and evil spirits. Instead of washing, people began to use aromatic herbs, sachets filled with dried flowers and spices, and later perfumes and colognes to mask unpleasant odors. The wealthy wore several layers of clothing, changing their undergarments more frequently to create an illusion of cleanliness and absorb sweat. King Louis XIV, known as the Sun King, for example, reportedly bathed only a few times in his life, preferring to lavishly use perfume to mask the odors of his body and those of his courtiers. His court at Versailles, despite all its luxury, was known for a terrible stench, described as a mixture of sweat, perfumes, excrement, and unwashed bodies. This was a period when epidemics of plague, smallpox, typhus, and other diseases devastated cities, claiming millions of lives. The lack of basic hygiene undoubtedly played a significant role in this. Cities were dirty, streets were littered with waste, and sanitation was non-existent, creating ideal conditions for the proliferation of rats and fleas, vectors of disease. Meanwhile, in the East, in the Islamic world, hygiene flourished and reached its peak. Islam mandated ritual ablution, wudu, before each prayer, as well as full ablution, ghusl, after certain states, fostering a deep culture of cleanliness. Arab scholars and artisans not only preserved but significantly improved the process of soap making. They used high-quality vegetable oils, such as olive, sesame, and almond, as well as alkali, derived from the ash of salt-tolerant plants, and various aromatic additives, such as thyme, lavender, rosemary, chamomile, and orange blossom. Soap was produced in large quantities in cities like Aleppo, Syria, and Nablus, Palestine, and was accessible not only to the nobility, but also to common people. Aleppo soap, made from olive oil and laurel oil, is still considered one of the oldest and purest types of soap in the world. Baths, or hammams, were as important public centers as the Roman thermae, but with an emphasis on cleanliness, relaxation, and spiritual purification. They were elegant structures with marble floors, domes, and sophisticated heating systems. Visiting a hammam was not just a wash, but a whole ritual, including massage, skin exfoliation, and relaxation. It was thanks to Arab merchants who traveled along the Silk Road and across the Mediterranean, and the Crusaders who returned from their campaigns, that soap gradually began to re-enter Europe, albeit as an exotic and very expensive commodity. In the 12th or 13th centuries, in some European cities that had close trade ties with the East, such as Marseille, France, Savona, Italy, and Castile, Spain, the first soap-making industries began to emerge. The Italian city of Savona became one of the early centers of soap production, and its olive oil-based soap became known as Savona soap. In Marseille, the famous Marseille soap, also based on olive oil, developed. However, this was an expensive luxury, accessible only to the very wealthy and primarily used for washing delicate fabrics, not for personal hygiene. For most Europeans, soap remained an unattainable luxury, and bathing was a rare event. The Renaissance brought with it a renewed interest in antiquity, but the revival of hygiene was very slow. Although some intellectuals and doctors began to recognize the importance of cleanliness, mass consciousness changed with difficulty. In the 16th, 17th centuries, despite scientific advancements, many still believed in the miasma theory, that diseases spread through bad air and odors rather than through microbes. Therefore, instead of washing, they preferred to air out rooms and use strong perfumes. For example, in the 17th century, pomanders, aromatic apples, were popular in Europe. People carried them to protect themselves from unpleasant odors and, as was then believed, from diseases. A real turning point occurred only in the 18th, 19th centuries, with the onset of the Industrial Revolution and the development of chemistry. A key moment was the invention by the French chemist Nicolas Leblanc in 1791 of a method for producing soda, sodium carbonate, from common salt. Before this, alkali, necessary for soap making, was extracted from wood ash, which was a laborious, inefficient, and expensive process, limiting production volumes. Leblanc's method, and later the more advanced Solvay process, significantly reduced the cost of alkali production and, consequently, of soap. This made soap more accessible to broader segments of the population, although initially it was still relatively expensive. The mass production of soap led to its gradual but steady spread. By the mid-19th century, soap had become an indispensable part of every household. It was used for laundry, cleaning, and, most importantly, for personal hygiene. Advertising began to actively promote the idea of cleanliness as a guarantee of health, social success, and even moral virtue. The first major soap brands emerged, promising not only cleansing but also beauty. freshness, and even relief from ailments. Soap became a symbol of progress in civilization. Campaigns promoting soap often used images of happy, healthy families, emphasizing that cleanliness was the path to well-being. At the same time, the scientific discoveries of Louis Pasteur, 1822-1895, and Robert Koch, 1843-1910, revolutionized the understanding of hygiene. Pasteur proved that diseases are caused by microorganisms, and Koch identified specific bacteria responsible for terrible diseases like tuberculosis and cholera. This definitively refuted the miasma theory and showed that cleanliness was not just an aesthetic whim, but a matter of survival. Doctors and scientists actively promoted hand washing as the primary method of combating infections. Ignaz Semmelweis, a Hungarian physician, even in the mid-19th century, discovered that washing hands with chlorinated lime significantly reduced mortality from puerperal fever in hospitals, although his ideas were not immediately accepted and cost him his career. However, his work, along with the discoveries of Pasteur and Koch, laid the foundation for modern medical hygiene. These scientific breakthroughs led to a veritable boom in the production of soap and other hygiene products. Public figures and governments launched campaigns to improve public sanitation and hygiene. New water supply and sewage systems were built, and urban infrastructure was improved, allowing clean water to be delivered to homes and waste to be effectively removed. Cleanliness became part of public health policy, and soap became one of the main tools in the fight against infectious diseases. This was a period when average life expectancy began to rise sharply, largely due to improved sanitation and hygiene. By the early 20th century, soap had become so commonplace that we barely think about its significance. However, its evolution continued. Specialized types of soap emerged for face, body, hands, children, and laundry. Glycerin was added to soap to moisturize the skin, as were various fragrances and dyes, transforming it from a purely functional item into a product that provided pleasure and care. Perfume soap bars became a symbol of refinement and personal hygiene, and their variety grew with each decade. In the mid-20th century, synthetic detergents appeared on the market. These could lather and clean even in hard water, where traditional soap lost its properties, forming an insoluble residue, soap scum. This led to an even greater variety of hygiene products. Shower gels, liquid soaps, shampoos, conditioners, deodorants, toothpastes, all became part of our daily lives, offering endless options for every skin type, hair type, and preference. The era of mass consumption led to hygiene products becoming not just a necessity, but a lifestyle element, with marketing campaigns promising not just cleanliness, but confidence, attractiveness, and even happiness. Today, we live in a world where cleanliness is elevated to a cult. We have access to countless self-care products, from antibacterial soap to exotic scrubs, masks, and high-tech skincare devices. Soap, once a luxury, is now a basic necessity. Supermarkets offer entire aisles dedicated to hygiene, with products promising not only cleanliness, but also health, beauty, youth, and even eco-friendliness. However, despite all innovations, the basic principle remains unchanged. Soap is an emulsifier that helps water wash away fat and dirt from our skin. It breaks down the surface tension of water, allowing it to mix with fats and oils, and then wash them away, along with dirt and microbes. Modern research continues to deepen our understanding of the skin microbiome, leading to the development of new products aimed at maintaining the balance of beneficial bacteria. The history of soap is not just the history of a chemical invention. It is the history of humanity, its struggle against disease, its pursuit of comfort, beauty, and social progress. From the ash and animal fat used by primitive people to the exquisite perfumed bars and high-tech gels we find in our bathrooms today, soap has come a long and amazing way. It has become an invisible yet powerful ally in our quest for a healthy and clean life, transforming not only our bodies but also our societies, making them healthier, more productive, and more comfortable. And the next time you wash your hands, perhaps you'll pause for a moment to consider the long and astonishing journey this humble bar has taken to reach your bathroom. It carries echoes of ancient civilizations, medieval mysteries, and revolutionary scientific discoveries, reminding us how far we have come in our understanding of the world and ourselves, and how much our daily lives have changed thanks to this simple yet ingenious invention.